Hello there! Today we'll look into the features of the Flex Container block, which is included in the Caledros Basic Blocks WordPress plugin. This plugin can be installed directly from the plugins section of the WordPress dashboard. It's also available for download on wordpress.org and from my GitHub account. Links are provided in the video description. In this section, we'll learn how to use the Flex direction controls of the Flex Container block. These controls allows us to define the main axis along which the container's items are laid out. In other words, whether the items are arranged in rows or columns. The Flex Container block can be used both in posts and pages. To use this block, just click on the Edit button of the page or post you want to modify. Then type Flex in the block search bar or simply select it from the list below. Once you add the Flex Container block, it will be invisible, because it does not have any CSS styles applied. This block creates a div HTML tag that can contain any Gutenberg block. To make the Flex Container visible, we will add a simple border. This border will be solid, 1 pixel wide, black in light mode, and white in dark mode. Then we will add a child block to the first Flex Container. To do that, we will click on the Add Block button. We will add a new Flex Container block. Then we will assign a red background color to this new block. We will also assign a minimum height of 200 pixels to it. Then we will duplicate this Flex Container and assign a blue background color to the duplicate. The Flex Container block has 3 main responsive controls for the Flex Direction CSS property. By default, the Flex Direction for a new Flex Container is raw, but it can be changed easily. So, by using this block, we can assign different Flex Directions to the block for different devices, such as desktop, tablet, or mobile devices. We can preview these changes using the View button of the Gutenberg editor. Maximum width control. We can choose between 3 main values for the maximum width property: full width, content size, and white size. Content size and white size values are defined in the Styles section of the full site editor. To access that section, just go to Appearance, Editor, Styles, and then Layout. There you can modify the values for the content width and the white width. These values may differ depending on the WordPress theme you use. Additionally, you can set a custom width for the Flex Container. You can choose from different width units, such as pixels, percentages, EM, REM, and the viewport width unit. The responsive full width controls allow a Flex Container to span 100% width on tablets and mobile devices, while retaining its original width on desktops. In this example, we have a Flex Container with 2 child containers. The first has a width of 30%, and the second has a width of 70%. This layout looks fine on desktop screens. However, on tablets and mobile devices, the child Flex Containers won't span the full width of the screen. To fix this, we can enable the option that allows the child Flex Containers to span the full width on tablets and mobile devices. If we only want the child Flex Containers to span the full width on mobile devices and not on tablets, we can disable this option and instead enable the responsive full width option specifically for mobile. Minimum height control. By default, the Flex Container block has a minimum height of auto. However, we can set its height using different units such as pixels, EM, REM, and viewport height units. Row gap control. By default, the Flex container block has a row gap property set to normal. However, we can set this property to a custom value in pixels. This property is essential when creating row-based layouts. Column gap control. By default, the Flex container block has its column gap property set to normal. However, we can set this property to a custom value in pixels. This property is essential when creating column-based layouts. Background color controls. There are two controls for changing the background color of a Flex container block, one for light mode and one for dark mode. By default, a new Flex container block has a transparent background color. Once this option is disabled, a new color can be selected. This color can be chosen from the theme color palette or defined as a completely custom color. In this example, we are selecting a custom color using the hue and transparency controls. To view the background color for dark mode, we will preview dark mode by enabling the corresponding option. Then we will adjust the hue and transparency. In this way, the Flex container block includes built-in controls for setting different background colors for light and dark modes, without relying on third-party plugins. Background image control. The background image control allows us to add a background image to the Flex container block. To use this control, we go to the Style tab, click on the background image control, and then click on the Select Image button. We can either choose an image from the media library or upload a new one. After selecting an image, we may need to adjust the height of the Flex container, especially if it doesn't contain any content. Once the background image is visible, we can use the background position control to adjust its position within the Flex container. We can remove the background image by clicking on the Remove Image button. Background gradient control. With the background gradient control, we can add custom gradients to a Flex container block. There are two separate controls, one for light mode and one for dark mode. By default, these options are deactivated for new Flex container blocks. After enabling the background gradient control, we can customize the gradient's colors, type, and angle. To preview the gradient in dark mode, we need to toggle the dark mode in the sidebar. These controls allows us to add different gradients for light and dark modes without relying on third-party dark mode plugins. Border controls. For this example, we will use a Flex container with a minimum height of 400 pixels. Then we will go to the Style tab, where we will find 5 controls related to the container's border. The border style control allows us to choose from 9 different styles. We can also apply different styles to each side of the container. To make the border visible, the border width must be greater than 0. Like the border style, we can assign different widths to each side of the container. There are 2 border color controls, one for light mode and one for dark mode. Both allows us to set different colors for each side of the container. The dark mode control functions identically to the light mode control. Finally, the border radius control lets us create rounded corners using either pixel or percentage values. As with the other border controls, we can specify different values for each corner of the container. Box Shadow Control. By default, the box shadow property is disabled in a new Flex container block. After enabling it, we can set its style to outline or inset. We can also control its horizontal offset, vertical offset, blur, and spread. Additionally, there are two color controls, one for light mode and one for dark mode. Margin control. By default, a new Flex container block has a margin of 0. We can set the same margin value for all sides, or we can choose different values for each side of the block, such as the top margin, right margin, bottom margin, or left margin. Padding control. By default, a new Flex container block has a padding of 0. We can use the global padding option, which applies a predefined padding to the right and left sides of the block. To adjust this padding, we go to Appearance, Editor, Styles, Layout, where we can adjust the values of the global padding. We can set the same padding value to the 4 block sides. However, we can also set different padding values to each side. The available padding units are pixels, percentages, EM, REM, and the viewport width unit. Justify content and align items controls. The justify content property controls how items are spaced along the main axis, while the align items property controls how items are aligned along the cross axis. In this example, the container's flex direction is set to row. So the main axis is horizontal and the cross axis is vertical. We'll use the justify content property to space the items horizontally and the align items property to align them vertically. The values that justify content accepts are flex start, which is the default value, flex end, center, space between, space around, and space evenly. The values that align items accepts are normal, which is the default value, flex start, flex end, center, stretch, and baseline. By setting both justify content and align items to center, we can center the items inside the flex container. This is especially useful for centering text or other elements within a flex container block. If we change the flex direction of the container to column, then justify content will control the vertical spacing, and align items will control the horizontal alignment. Overflow control. The CSS overflow property controls what happens when content overflows the boundaries of its container. For example, if it doesn't fit within the specified width and height. By default, a new flex container block has a visible overflow. However, we can choose other values such as hidden, scroll, or auto, creating a simple hero section. The Flex container block is a powerful tool that allows us to create designs ranging from simple to complex. In this example, we have a basic hero section built using this block. It includes a default heading block, a default paragraph block, and a custom button block. The Flex direction is set to column, and both justify content and align items are set to center. This demonstrates how the Flex container block can be used alongside default Gutenberg blocks to create simple yet effective layouts. Thank you for watching.